Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Magnum Force from Forge Arts, a subsidiary of RarePlayingCards.com. Now, when Forge Arts decided to do this Kickstarter deck inspired by 1980s cartoons, they decided to contact designer and illustrator Basil Murad of Blood and Chrome. He does a lot of 80s inspired artwork, and so he was the perfect choice to try to capture the essence of Saturday morning cartoons. Now, I grew up loving these cartoons. Think He-Man, Battle Cats, G.I. Joe. I was a big fan of those growing up, so very excited to get a hold of this deck and to share it with you guys. So let's get into it. All right, starting with the tuck case. It's a glossy finish tuck case, and it does have some slight embossing on it. Maybe you can kind of see it there in the light. And the front of it is done in really bright, bold, almost neon colors. A lot of pinks, reds and blues, and then of course the purple background. The front of it looks like it was ripped right off of the title screen of your favorite Saturday morning cartoon. It says Magnum Force playing cards in big, bold, almost chromed out looking letters. You have the large cobra forming a sort of heart shape as he peeks over the top, the shining diamond, and then that purple background that's just radiating flames or lightning bolts all the way out. Very cool vibe all the way through. As you turn to the sides, you got Magnum Force again, and then that heart cobra emblem over there on the side. Same thing on the other side. The bottom has your ad copy for USPCC, who printed this deck. And on the top, you have that heart cobra emblem just covered up by the tuck seal. The back here is going to be a representation of the back design of the cards. We'll look more at the detail in a second, but it does have the addition of the 4 suit values here in the 4 corners. And then you have just a plain black and white standard USPCC seal. Very fun, very bright. Love the color schemes that were used on the tuck case. If I were going to change anything, I would have traded as an upgrade. I could have done without the embossing. I don't think it adds nearly as much to this particular tuck case. And I would have loved to have seen maybe a custom tuck seal instead of this plain black and white one. I think when it comes to kind of preserving the overall feel of the tuck case, that would have been a better trade-off. That said, can't complain too much for a tuck case that's just this cool. As you open it up, you have more of that purple flame background there, and then the Blood and Chrome logo represented in pink line work on the interior flaps. Nothing on the inside of the tuck, and that does it for the box. All right, let's get into the cards next. And we'll start, as we usually do, with the back design. And here it is. Same style and keeping with the tuck case, all done in that big, bright purple background. And then you have the double cobra design there on the front, forming the two-way back design. And there it is, kind of a close-up of it. I love the illustration, just how strong it looks, the flare of the hood there, and then the shining background of that diamond. So very cool, borderless design here. So it gives you a little bit of something extra if you use this in fans as well. So there's your back design. Now into the cards. You get a trio of jokers. It's actually 2 jokers plus a duplicate. And these represent the first of several characters that we're going to see in the deck. Now, I'm not going to tell too much of the story of these. We'll get into those as we get into the court cards, because these characters tie into the court cards. But this is Gritter over here, this evil, menacing looking creature on the red Joker. And you got that multicolored fur, those multiple rows of teeth. And then this over here is Snargle on the blue one. Much cuter, much more upbeat looking character with that goofy grin. This guy kind of reminds me of Alf, if you've ever seen that weird sitcom from the late 80s. ALF stands for alien life form, and it was this alien that came to live with a family, if memory serves. But kind of has that look to him, but done in pink. Very cute, cuddly creature. There's also a duplicate ALF card, this time with the 2 of spades reveal behind him. So there's your blue Joker and your red Joker and your duplicate. All right, there are those. We'll be back to those characters in a little bit. You also get a Gaff card. These are always nice to have. This one's a double-sided court card. So you've got the Queen of Clubs on one side and the King of Hearts on the other. It's a nice Gaff card edition there. All right, now looking at the number cards next. And here they are, starting with the 2 of spades. Now the pips are all going to be fully custom. They're going to be against this light blue background. That pale blue is a very interesting feel overall to the deck. I love that they did full custom all the way through. And the pips themselves are all individualized. So the spade pip here, designed to look a little bit like a I don't know, mutant skeleton of some sort. Almost looks like a cross between, I don't know, a shark and a mammoth or something like that to me. So there's your spade pip, whereas the main pips in the center are purple. The pip and index in the corner are all done with a custom font and in black. So there's your spade pips. As you go through, pretty standard layout on the lower numbers, but as you get to the higher numbers, you do get some custom layout elements in there. Gives it a little unique feel to it. The diamond pips are in a red, almost pink color, and the diamonds are shurikens, like ninja throwing stars. And then as we get to the clubs, they're more classic human skulls with that omega tattooed onto the top. Now, I will say, I wish they distinguished a little bit better between the spade and the club. I could have very much made the case that this over here is the club pip, but it's actually this one over here. So not too easy to tell the difference between the spade and the club, if you're trying to use this for gameplay or something. One small knock, but still a cool design nonetheless. So there's your club pips, and then into your heart pips. Much more recognizable on these with that cobra and its hood forming the classic heart shape. So there are your heart pips. So that's the number cards, but the real story of this deck is told in the court cards. So what Basil Murad did as he was designing the deck is he decided that every single one of the suits would represent a different faction of some sort. Imagine it, each one of them being their own kind of cartoon story. So each one of the suits is going to have 3 characters from this faction, as well as an ace that represents the faction itself. Let's get into it, find out what these are about. All right, starting with the spades. The spades represent the Beast Corps. And the story of the Beast Corps is basically there was an underground laboratory where mad scientists were performing experiments on humans and animals, forming all sorts of mutant creations. One day there was an attack at the lab. 3 of them escaped and formed this group that now commits crimes all over the city. That's the story behind it. Here's the symbol on the Ace of Spades done in nice red, green, and purple colors. You've got that same skeleton that we saw on the spade pips from before, now highlighted in the center. Beast Corps at the bottom, and these cool green spikes coming out. Very nice cartoony 80s vibe to it. And then as we get into the characters here, these are 3 of those escaped characters from the lab. So first off is the Jack. We have Sawdust. This was a serial killer who was brought into the lab so they could perform experiments on him. You can see a little bit of Freddy Krueger vibes, like Nightmare on Elm Street, that recognizable sweater that he's wearing, for example. And he's got that whirring, bloody chainsaw, the mask over his face, and just that crazed look with those sharp-pointed teeth. So incredibly crazy madman. And this is actually one of the characters that ties into one of the Jokers. This Joker over here, I mentioned his name was Gritter. This is actually a character that was out of the imagination of Sawdust here. The scientists were able to kind of create a physical manifestation of this horror from his mind. So cool tie into the Joker. The Queen of Clubs here, this is Technomorph, obviously inspired a little bit by Xenomorph. You can see the classic shape there. But this alien-like creature with the eyeball coming out of its mouth has the power of telekinesis and mind control, or psychokinesis and mind control. So very nice. Love that 2-way design and all of the cool detail that goes into it. And then the King of Clubs. This is Terror-Rex, a cyborg dinosaur. You got that classic T-Rex complete with the little squatty arms, but mounted on his head's a gun and cyborg eyepieces, giving him a very menacing look. And look at that detail, just the splash of the slobber coming out of his mouth, that green slobber, his sharp teeth. Very nice look to that one. I like the King of Clubs a lot, or the King of Spades a lot. So there are your clubs and the members of the Beast Squad, or Beast Corps, I should say. Now we get into the diamonds, and the diamonds are the home of the Diamond All-Stars. And you can see them here represented with the shuriken and the sword. Diamond All-Stars written at the bottom in that rainbow coloring. This one's a really interesting story. This is probably the most 80s mashup style background story that I've ever seen. This one has a really crazy background. So the story goes, the king and the queen here were refugees from another planet. Basically, they were part of a rebel alliance that was fighting against an evil empire. This is Gemstar and Ruby Redstone. The two of them escaped to Earth, where they were ultimately discovered by Jack here. This is Shadow Razor the ninja. Shadow Razor brought them in, helped to acclimate them to Earth, and eventually the three of them formed a band together, because it turns out Ruby Redstone is a singer. They formed a band together, which they used as a cover to fight crime. Really bizarre story, but I think it's kind of almost a caricature of some of the crazy stories you'll see for 80s cartoons. In fact, it's kind of a mashup. The master trainer ninjas, maybe a little bit of a throwback to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The two refugees from another planet maybe evokes some memories of Thundercats, and even the singer and the band turned crime fighters. That one kind of reminds me of a little bit more obscure find from the 80s. Gem and the Holograms was actually a story of a band of women who on the side would also fight crime. They used their band as a cover to fight crime. So interesting mashup of some maybe obscure and not so obscure characters or shows from the 80s. So there is Shadow Razor. There's Ruby Redstone, microphone in hand, that blue skin. And then the King of Diamonds, that's Gemstar with his sword in hand. So very interesting mashup. That's probably my favorite set of quartz there with the diamonds. Now going to the clubs, we now have the Omega Syndicate. Story of this one, these three characters are all gang leaders from the future. They would constantly fight each other, but one day they found themselves transported magically through time into the year 1985, where they decided to join forces and become an evil syndicate. So the three of these now are evil characters in the year 1985 who just wreak havoc on the world around them. And so here we've got the first of them. The Jack is Jawstrap. You can see him there with that metallic jaw, able to crush things with his mouth there. I love that long tongue coming out in that menacing, kind of futuristic looking sunglasses that he's wearing. And then the Queen of Clubs, this is Regina Rage. A bit of a survivalist character, has those really huge shoulder pads on and those kind of bionic looking fists, and that crazy mohawk. So there's the survivalist Regina Rage. And last but not least is Skull Crusher. Really powerful looking character, has the gun in hand, but also the ability to crush skulls with his bare hands. So there he is. Love the addition even of the little club, the more classic club on his wrist guard there. So there are the members of the Omega Syndicate. And last but not least, maybe inspired by G.I. Joe, is the Viper Squad. The Viper Squad, not a lot known about them, but they're a squad of heroes who travel the world helping to fight against evil wherever they find it. Really mysterious group. Nobody knows much about their ways or their skills or even where they're based, but just know that they appear all over the place to help fight evil. So you can see them there represented by the Cobra or the Viper. And we have the three members. So first off is the Jack of Hearts. This is Turbo Jack, has that kind of crazed look in his eye. Maybe reminds you a little bit of Guile from the Street Fighter series. He's a demolitions expert, complete with a grenade in hand. So very military inspired. The Queen of Hearts, this is the crackshot marksman. This is Viper Strike. Has a little bit of a RoboCop vibe to her overall with that helmet, the visor on, and the metallic armor all the way through. So there's Viper Strike. And last but not least is Roundhouse. Roundhouse is a Kung Fu master, so skilled in hand-to-hand combat. And maybe if you look at him, you'll see a little bit of Chuck Norris in him. Another classic from the 80s. So there is Roundhouse. So that's it. That is the story of the deck. A very interesting, fun, vibrant deck. As far as handling, there were some thoughts of upgrading this potentially to a different stock, but they're just on the regular retail stock with an air cushion finish, which for me, honestly, they handle really, really well. No complaints there. And with that borderless back, I think you could have issues with registration. My particular deck doesn't at all, so I can't complain too much about this one and its handling. It fans beautifully right out of the box. Dribbles, springs, all that are going to work well. Cuts, definitely a great handling deck. Now, what is the deck good for? Well, it's a fun collector's item, obviously, but I think just one that would be great to use for gameplay above all else. I think there are some elements, most notably those spades and clubs being hard to distinguish, that maybe pull it back a little bit from being used as a really great gameplay deck, but still a fun twist on your gameplay nonetheless. So gameplay, or just as a fun collector's item, I think that's really going to be the forte of this deck, which I think is really just an underrated deck overall. So I'll put some links down in the description. There's plenty of places where you can get a hold of Magnum Force. If you are interested, make sure to go check those out if you like what you see here. All right, otherwise, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings, and let me know what else you want to see. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you for the next one.